This is the 2025 Genesis GV80, and this is the Range Rover Sport. And today, we're going to see if the Genesis GV80 has what it takes to become a true competitor to the Range Rover Sport.
When you think of the Range Rover Sport, a few things come to mind. First, it is luxurious, sporty. It's a great off-roader with the right tires, of course. It's capable, it offers so much if you want to take this off-road, although most people don't. It also has a bad stereotype that these are unreliable, you should never buy them, and somehow I see them everywhere. In fact, you can ask any dealership, they love these things. And then you have the Genesis GV80, which also has a stereotype for being the Bentley from Wish.com or the cheaper version of Bentley. I think this is a great SUV. But the problem with this vehicle is the fact that people can't really separate Hyundai and Genesis. They always say, I read in the comments sometimes, it's just a spiced up Hyundai or it's just a more expensive Hyundai. In fact, it's a bit more than that. This thing is a great SUV overall. Although I don't see a lot on the road, even though people compliment them. Every time I do a review, they say they're great vehicles. The G90 is a perfect example. It's a great competitor to the 7 Series or the Mercedes S-Class, but somehow they still can't sell a lot of those.
When Genesis introduced the GV80 back in 2019, it received very positive reviews. In fact, some people were shocked that Genesis could make such vehicle. One of them was myself. But of course, this car has been in the market for a while, so for this year, well, they've decided to give it a facelift.
For 2025, the Genesis has received a facelift, including the front end, very aggressive, luxurious at the same time. It really stands out. The headlights are different. We've had this diamond cut style headlight, which really complements the car overall. In fact, we were able to actually catch one on the highway while we're filming the rollers, just to give you a perspective how different it is compared to the 2023-2024 model.
The Range Rover Sport is like the designer handbag of SUVs, flashy, expensive, and guaranteed to turn heads. It's the kind of vehicle that says, I've made it, but also, I'm not entirely sure how to parallel park this thing. And let's not forget its off-road capability, because nothing says rugged like 22-inch wheels. That said, the Range Rover Sport remains a masterclass in luxury, off-road capability, and power. On the other hand, we have the Genesis GV80. It's like the automotive equivalent of the friend who just discovered my drag race videos and now won't stop talking about them. All jokes aside, the Genesis GV80 is a standout in the luxury SUV market. The design is elegant and definitely modern. It's clear the Genesis has spared no effort in making the GV80 a serious contender.
Moving on to the rear end, the Range Rover first. Very standard, nothing too crazy. Everything is nice, flush design. Nothing is standing out or bulky, like weird. I love it. Clean design overall. Now, let's open the trunk and let me show you what we have inside. The first thing you need to know is that this does come with a spare tire, but you don't get that on the Genesis. Now, is that a deal breaker? Maybe for some people. Next thing is got the more space underneath here, and if you look carefully, around here we have these buttons to fold the seats, but also you can raise the vehicle from here because it comes with air suspension system. And why is that important? Well, let's just say you have something heavy here. Well, guess what? That comes in real handy. And that's the maximum level. Now, once you drive off, the vehicle will lower itself to the optimal or normal size. On top of that, we do have a light in here that you can turn on. As you can see, in case if you're going camping, which I'm assuming most of the owners of the Range Rover Sport will never do, you can use this button on the side to give you better brightness. But in terms of cargo space, you don't really get a lot for an SUV. It's enough, but it's not the best in class. The Genesis offers more depth in terms of space, not so much in height. In fact, you can see right now that my head cannot fit inside properly. I have to duck down quite a lot. Meanwhile, in the Range Rover, I had enough room for my head to be pretty much straight at this point. Another thing that the Genesis offers is a third row. Now, when you do that, you reduce the space quite a lot. Here's how you do it. There's two buttons on this side for left and right, and they automatically fold up. Now you got yourself almost 7 seats. But in the third row, you couldn't fit someone my height, and I'm not going to do that test because it's not my favorite thing to do. But here you are. And then you reduce the space by almost 60 to 70% because now you have these seats. Good news is that if you don't like them, you just press those two buttons and you can fold them. Let's jump into the second row of the Genesis. First of all, this is an interesting design inside because they have sort of redesigned the interior for certain things. The seats are very much the same. The quilted leather, this color interior, it's ugly as hell. It makes me feel like I'm a 90-year-old man. I'm only 69, so I'm still very young. I like the interior design, the color, it's taken me off completely, just such an ugly thing. But you get some interesting things in this car. First, you've got your own sunroof because it's split in half. Second, you've got these vanity mirrors here in case if your partner wants to do her makeup or something like that, they don't have to carry a mirror with them. They have two in here. On top of that, we've got this sunshade on this side, which is hidden, and you don't get it with the Range Rover Sport, the model that we have for today's video, which this is quite nice. Then we've got a climate unit in here, which is heated seats, ventilated seats, and you get a third climate unit in the third row, which again, it's pretty cool. A lot of tech features. Now, in terms of space, pretty comfortable. I can see myself being a passenger in the back. In fact, I'm 6'2", so this seems very, very spacious inside. I like it, and I like the interior minus this paint choice. It's just so ugly. I like these little things at the top here to hang things, maybe your little bag or your purse or something, or your jackets if you work in an office, which is something rare right now because most people work from home. Anyhow, let's jump in the Range Rover. Into the Range Rover. First thing I noticed with this is that it has this couch design seats which make you feel like you're at home. I like that. But also more headroom. That's another thing I feel about this. And this one has a full-size panoramic roof, so it's not split in half. But it has like little cute details, like these handles at the top are very classy, very royal. Kind of like what you see in a Rolls Royce. In many ways, I love the finish around it. The two things that do not belong here are these screens, which in my opinion are useless. So if you're ordering one, do not order these. They become useless after 2 years. It's nice, but in the long run, it's a nightmare. Also having kids play with these things constantly. Not a big fan. We've got a climate unit in the center with heated seats, ventilated seats, the standard things. This one doesn't come with those hidden sunshades, but you do get tinted windows, which is nice. And you've got power seat in here, similar to what you find in the Genesis GV80. The difference is with that one, it's manually adjustable, but you have to press a button to fold them because you have a third row. Space overall, I kind of like it here. I feel more comfortable in this one. It's just more chill overall. It feels more spacious. As I'm saying that, my camera guy is going, yep, you're correct. He's agreeing with me. And just roomy overall. That's what I like about this thing here. But again, not everybody's 6'2" like myself. Okay, into the Genesis. The first thing you need to know is that they have redesigned the interior, especially this area over here, the dashboard. Now we have a massive curved display. Seems like everybody's going with this curved display design, which, again, I get it, but they're copying BMW in many ways or Escalade because they was the first one to do it. But I do like this setup that they have, like the center area where you have the screen, you've got some buttons as well. And then I love the steering wheel. They finally changed that ugly steering wheel that vehicle came with. I was not a fan of it at all. This one is much nicer. You've got buttons that you can play around here. You've got like a touch scroll button that you can control the infotainment display, which is really nice. I love the cluster. You got heads-up display. There's also this part over here for the rear camera, which again is really nice and cool. Everything just is perfect right now, in my opinion. I've done a great job with the overall design, which is what you want. So the facelift has worked so far. Now, a few things that I can complain with this design is that when it's too bright, where you have the R for reverse, neutral, and drive, it's very hard to see in what gear you're in unless you're looking on the screen, because down here, these colors just disappear. Not the smartest design for that, but that's about it. And then you have also a scroll button that you can control the infotainment display, which again, I'm a big fan. And this year they've included sort of like an internal spray for the smell, kind of like a aroma that you'd see in the Mercedes. The Lincoln Nautilus has it as well. In case if it smells bad on the outside, this thing will just spray, but it's not activated. So I'm assuming they haven't included that package or that actual system with this model that we have, but it is available. I can see it in here. The Range Rover, of course, it has a very different design. In fact, you don't have that curved display, and I'm actually happy they didn't do that. Not everybody has to be the same. Everybody has to have curved display. They went the other way. You have this massive tablet in the center, and then you have this diamond cut, as I call it, cluster. The bottom part looks like one, and then it has a heads-up display. I love the cluster. It looks perfect. The steering wheel is also beautiful, the way it's designed. The interior color is very similar to the one in the Genesis. The difference is this is brighter, so it doesn't feel as old. It still feels very classy or luxurious. I love the dashboard, the way it's set up. The steering position is perfect. This is one of my favorite SUVs, and I've said this multiple times. But there's a few things that I can complain about this car is the infotainment display, which is not really the fastest I've used, and it's not as good as the one in the Genesis. There's a bit of a lag here, the way when you're going left and right, when you're going through menu, it's not the fastest. I'm hoping that for the new generation or maybe the facelift version, they update this and make it a little bit faster because it annoys me. But I do love the fact that you get a lot more compartments in this vehicle. Like for example, you have space underneath here. There's the compartment at the top. There is one at the bottom. There's also a cooler in here in case if you go camping, which again, 99% of the owners will never do because they're afraid to take their cars off-road. And you can store anything, or maybe if you have baby formula, you can just store it right in there, which I love. And you've got more space in the center. You just go through these sort of like double deckers to go all the way to the bottom, so you can store a lot of things. Appreciate that. Everything else is just slightly better designed, in my opinion, in the Range Rover. I just like the layout. Everything is where it should be. Minus the fact that you don't get a lot of buttons. Some people don't like that. I think you get used to it. If you buy a vehicle that doesn't have a lot of buttons, with time, you get used to it. Us, the Tesla owners, can't find a single button in their car. The Genesis under the hood uses a 3.5-liter V6 twin turbocharged engine, but that's not the only engine. The one that we have for today's video is the one that has that 3.5-liter. You can also get a 2.5-liter. This one makes 375 brake horsepower and 391 pound-feet of torque, uses a 8-speed automatic transmission. It is all-wheel drive. The Range Rover Sport P400 that we have for today's video, it uses a V6 as well, turbocharged engine. It's a 3-liter in this case, not a 3.5, and it makes 395 brake horsepower and 405 pound-feet of torque. It is equipped also with an 8-speed automatic transmission. It is 4-wheel drive with the option a lock differential in the center because it is a Land Rover, which means you get the option to lock the differential. Also, it has air ride with the system, which means it makes it heavier in comparison to the GV80. Fuel efficiency, well, this one shows about 11 liters per 100 kilometers, between 10.5 to 11 liters per 100 kilometers. Now, it's a big engine, of course, makes a lot of horsepower and requires premium. Here's what I can tell you in terms of the power delivery, and when you put a foot down, they feel about the same. And in fact, I can almost bet that on a drag race, they will be very close. Comfort level, having the suspension air ride in the Range Rover Sport, I notice how much more comfortable that ride is in comparison to this. You notice that because air rides are terrific when it comes to driving them. The experience is just at a different level, but that of course comes with a lot of responsibility down the road, which means it could be very costly. Now, to wrap it up, which one would I take home? Is the Genesis GV80 enough? Well, before I say that, here is the pricing for each vehicle that we have for today's videos. As you see, that Range Rover is actually about $129,000 Canadian, which would be about $105,000 US. Meanwhile, the GV80 with this package, the 3.5 liter top trim, you're looking at about 95 Canadian or about $70,000 or so USD. The price, which means you're looking to pay almost 30 to 40 grand for that Range Rover. Does that mean that is worth it? Yes and no. Yes, because it has the name, it has that off-road capability, it's got a nicer interior, minus the screens. It drives, I would say, better than the Genesis in terms of comfort level. The seats are so comfortable in that car. It actually feels like you're sitting at home on a couch. Like, that's the way that thing feels. It's got a presence on the outside, although with this massive grille, the Genesis really to the next level. You can see this thing from 2 kilometers away. But if money is an issue where you go, I don't really care about all that stuff, Sam. I just need a nice looking SUV. I need some tech on the inside. But something a bit more luxurious. I don't want to buy the Acura. I don't want to buy the Lexus. Not a fan of that. Can't even pay for the Lexus. Can't even find them to the dealership. So what do? Well, you're stuck with the Genesis in some ways. Not in a bad way, but this would be your option if you couldn't afford the Range Rover. Because $30,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people. So they look at that and they go, I can use that to buy maybe a BMW M2 as a weekend car, and then I have this as a family car, and you're all set. The Range Rover, on the other hand, it's more like, I like the name, I like how it looks, I'm done. I need that. And that's the perfect option. For me personally, I'm a big fan of Range Rovers. And between the two, I like that. But if I had to actually buy, would probably be a used Range Rover, which is a bad idea for most people because they think it's just going to be the most unreliable thing. That could be true, but most cases, it's going to be great if you take care of it. Yeah, I like the Range Rover. But this one is just as good.